Hello, everybody. Welcome to Story Time. Are you ready to get chilled and thrilled and scared? Well, then, you're at the right place. Let's get started.
There was an explosion. The building shook and the power went out. Frank yelled and ran up from the basement, his old legs lumbering. "What the hell is going on?" he asked, laboring with breath. His legs ached. He left his cane downstairs with all the excitement, but didn't want to go and retrieve it. He needed to rest first. "Sounded like an explosion," he said, through the opened basement door, his mind feeling cloudy. He stood there on the first floor of his office building. Sally wasn't at her desk. Though the power was out, enough light came through the office windows to see quite clearly. Frank braced himself against whatever he could lean on and checked every cubicle. No one was there. He looked at his watch. It was 2 p.m. "What the hell is going on?" he said aloud. He tried to think, but his thoughts were becoming more distant. He ran his fingers through his hair and settled on his temples, massaging them. There was an explosion, he reminded himself. The power went out. He sat at Sally's desk, resting and trying to clear the fog in his head. He noticed how empty her desk looked, but Sally was always organized and clean. His eyes were diverted towards the front glass doors. Everything was as it was supposed to be, except there was no life. Everyone was gone. Johnny, his son, worked on the second floor, so Frank got up with a groan and made his way to the stairs. Halfway up, he forgot what he was going up there for. His mind was becoming increasingly cloudy. He turned back. "This has to be a terrorist attack," he thought, "and I'm in some kind of poisonous gas cloud that is fogging my mind and most likely killing me." It was becoming increasingly difficult to concentrate. He could no longer remember the front receptionist's name. He could only remember that he was in the basement when the explosion occurred. Everyone else was gone. Maybe, he thought, because I was in the basement when the explosion occurred, the majority of the gas didn't affect me as much as it seems it is doing now. He made his way back down into the basement. There, he felt safe and at ease. Several pictures of his wife were on the wall, and looking at her comforted him. He sat at the lone desk, leaned back in his chair, and gazed into the pictures of his deceased wife, nearly 2 years now. He closed his eyes for only a moment. He sat up with a jolt. Had he been sleeping? He didn't think so, but now there was total darkness. There was no light seeping through the open door upstairs. He reached into the desk drawer, pulled out an old flashlight, and clicked it on. It was weak, but he was able to see clearer. Frank checked his watch. It still showed that it was 2 p.m. Although his mind was still cloudy, it seemed as though it was beginning to clear. With the flashlight in hand, he guided it until his cane came into view. After picking it up, he made his way back upstairs. The basement door was still open as he had left it. The office floor was dark, and the only light came from his failing flashlight, illuminating his surroundings. "I must be in the mushroom cloud or something, and it is blotting out the sun," he said aloud, as he scanned the room for any signs of life. After finding no one, he turned to go back down into the basement. As he reached the basement door, he turned suddenly, hearing someone a few feet away. "Hello?" he asked. He looked at Sally's desk. No one was there. He raised his hand to his temple, massaging it. He could feel the fog beginning to cloud his mind again. "Sally," he repeated, but there was no answer. He didn't think he had much time before he had to get back down into the basement again. He took one last look around. He tried to repeat her name, but her name eluded him. He looked up towards the second floor stairs, but could not remember what was up there. Feeling his mind was eroding faster, he returned to the basement. As he reached the bottom step, he remembered wanting to look out the front windows while he was up there. He did not want to go outside the front door, as that would only seal his fate, and he would surely die if he opened the door and let the gases rush in. He winced. The pain in his legs was returning. Cane or not, he had to rest. Frank sat back down in his chair and flicked out the flashlight. I need to conserve batteries, he thought, but he clicked it back on to see his wife's picture again before turning it back off. His hands rested in his lap, and the fog in his head cleared the longer he rested in the basement. I'll run up there really quick, look through the windows, and run back down before my mind gets cloudy again, he thought. He waited until he felt he could physically and mentally make his way back up. No time like the present, he finally said. Frank began to climb the stairs as quickly as his bum legs would allow. He reached the landing, barely noticing the empty reception desk or the vacant chair of the woman whose name he could no longer remember. Instead, Frank headed straight for the window, just as he had planned. He breathed heavily, and his body ached. He could feel the pressure building again inside his head. He looked out the window. It was still dark, but he could see enough that he saw the parking lot was empty. He could feel his mind drifting away again. What was I doing here at the window? He thought. Maybe I was trying to get out. He limped towards the front door and placed his hand on the knob. He looked around, confused. The pain in his head rushed in like a sinking ship. He turned, limping and leaning heavier on the cane as he made his way towards the basement. From the corner of his eye, he thought he saw someone. A woman. He turned to look, but she wasn't there. Frank was beginning to feel heavier, and the basement seemed so far away. He dropped the flashlight on the floor, shedding the weight it bore. He didn't even remember his name by the time he reached the basement steps. As he slumped into the chair, he repeated his name aloud. My name is Frank. I'm a Vietnam vet. My name is Frank Holiday. He repeated those words until he fell asleep in the chair, exhausted. He could see the light shining down from above when he woke up. The mushroom cloud has dissipated, he thought, and the sun is shining through. He looked at the picture of his wife before standing back up, feeling somewhat rejuvenated. My name is Frank, he said aloud. He looked up the stairs and wondered if he should even attempt to return there. He decided not to and sat back down. He must have fallen asleep because he woke to another jolt. Someone was up there. It sounded like whoever it was running around frantically. He could hear footsteps running. Frank got up, trying his best not to make any noise. The footfalls were becoming distant. They're going up the stairs to my son's office. I have to get out of here, Frank said to himself. He winced in pain and, leaning on his cane, headed towards the stairs. The footsteps were getting louder and closer. He looked up into the light coming through the upper door. As he did, a figure stood in the doorway. Frank could only see the outline of a man. The man spoke. Dad? Frank's face was filled with confusion. He held the cane like a weapon, pointing it upward towards the man. My name is Frank Holiday. I'm a Vietnam vet. My name is Frank Holiday. I'm a Vietnam vet. My wife's name is Sally. My name is Frank. Frank hunched over, a tear falling from his eye as he looked at the picture of his wife. My wife's name is Sally.